talking about relationships and how you probably are doing it wrong. Who loves to be told you're doing something wrong? It's the most embarrassing thing in the world. Who gets furious when your parents tell you you're doing something wrong? They're not being mean. They're trying to help, but we don't like to hear it, do we? It's like, I know what I'm doing. It doesn't matter if it's going to ruin the whole world. It doesn't matter if it could set off nuclear bombs. I know what I'm doing. It's like when your dad is lost and your mom's saying, pull over and ask for directions. I know what I'm doing. Obviously, he doesn't, or you wouldn't be cruising around for that extra hour not reaching your destination. He's doing something wrong. And a lot of us, because we are younger, because we haven't been through a lot of the things that older people go through, we do stuff wrong and we resist instruction. We resist biblical advice and we just do whatever feels good. And that's exactly why our relationships are so messed up. We just do what feels good. Oh, they'll hang out with me, so they got to be good for me. They're funny. I'll put them in my life. Well, maybe they're not good for your life. Maybe they're horrible for you. They look hot, so I'm going to date them. Well, they may look appealing to you, but that doesn't mean they're good for you. That doesn't mean they're going to benefit you. That doesn't mean you should do that. So we're going to look at doing it right, and we're going to point out some things that people do wrong. Does that make sense? If you are looking for someone to fulfill your needs when you date, you're doing it wrong. If you are looking for sex to satisfy you, you're doing it wrong. If you don't learn self-control before you marry somebody, you're doing it wrong because you'll never learn it afterwards if you don't learn it before. If you can't be complete with only Jesus and no one else, you're doing it wrong. If you are being used or taken advantage of when you date somebody, you're doing it wrong. If you don't have boundaries when it comes to dating, you're doing it wrong. There are places you don't want to go and you know it, and you should explain that to them and you should live that way. You should respect yourself. I'll get there later. If you are alone with the opposite sex ever, you're doing it wrong because that's not wisdom. It's just not wisdom. It's like putting me alone on like a track with a Ferrari and the keys are in the ignition. Something's going down. Something's going down. I'm going to get in it. I'm going to test that thing out. Things will not go well. If you're asking how far is too far, you're doing it wrong. That's the wrong question to ask. Well, how far can I get away from God before I plunge into hell? That's the wrong question to be asking. How close can I get to Him so that I can enjoy my life better? That's the real question you should be asking yourself. If you talk to and think about your boyfriend or girlfriend more than you do God, you're doing it wrong. Now, you're sitting there in your seat and you're like, that just sounds hokey. That just sounds like a Sunday school church answer. No, I'm telling you how to have balance in your life. Anyone ever looked around your high school or your middle school and you look around and you're just like, these fools are crazy. Anyone? When they're literally fighting someone over someone else that they just started dating 2 weeks ago, and they probably won't be dating 2 weeks from now, but they're ready to throw down right here in the hallway over that person. That doesn't make sense. Have you ever seen someone that literally gets depressed out of their mind and doesn't leave their room when they get broken up with? That's not healthy. That's not normal. Hey, that's not normal. That's your normal. That's school's normal. That's not normal human stuff. We're going to get into this a little bit. I want you to know you might be doing some things wrong. If you date people who have already been sexually active, you're doing it wrong. Why? All I can say is when someone goes into a relationship and the other person has publicly been sexually active and you know you don't want to do that, they're going to pressure you. It's not rocket science. I am not an educated person. I really am not. Most of you at 9th grade had more education than I have now. But you know what? I can figure out some stuff when I look at the Bible and realize, hey, this don't make sense. Hey, maybe if they've been sexually active before, they're going to expect you to be sexually active, and they're going to pressure you. Like I said, it's 1 + 1 = 2. Who in here needs to learn math when it comes to dating? I think so. Don't look at your neighbor. Don't look at your neighbor. For the last couple of weeks, we've been dealing with prayer and seeking the face of God, and what does dating have to do with that? You're like, Jeremy, it's February, and that's Valentine's Day, and that's why you're doing this. Honestly, part of it, but the real reason I do this is because after like 15 years of work with teenagers, I've seen some really anointed teenagers come through this church. I'm talking teens that went to national like ministry spotlights because God was using them in such an anointed way. and they came right through here, and I got this opportunity to pour into their lives. And you know the one thing that plagues all these teenagers and a lot of times stops them from becoming the man or woman of God they're called to be? It's their relationships. All the ones that I poured my life into, and those ones that are totally not even living for Jesus right now, they're lost as lost can be. They're wandering around in darkness. Most of them didn't get their relationships figured out. They went and did whatever felt good. They didn't have boundaries. They didn't let God have control of that part of their life. And even though they were doing some things right, that one area just plagued them. So why am I talking about dating when we've been pursuing the heart and the passion and the presence of God? Because you can't get to Him if you won't surrender this area of your life. And it's one of the top areas you're dealing with. Honestly, if you were to be honest, you would be like, what do you spend your time thinking about and worrying about and pursuing and chasing? It's relationships, friends, dating, and family. Those are the things you spend your life going after. And if one of those, like dating, is at the forefront and you're getting it wrong, it's no wonder your life's spinning out of control. It's no wonder you might be... Does everyone get where I'm going? There's a reason we're talking about this, because if you can't surrender this area of your life, it is the area I see students stumble in the most. It's the area I see students stumble in the most. And it would be, we can get in the presence of God and we can experience His presence, but at some point we need to be shown in the Scriptures how our life can be lined up with God. Because you could come in here and encounter Him, and if you walk back out there and do the same things over and over, you're just repeating the process over and over. We need to learn what God wants to say about dating. Who's at least remotely interested? Raise your hand about what God has to say about this. Just remotely. Listen, it's like questions you would ask God when you get to heaven. It's like, so the giraffe, explain that. Like, what happened there? Were you just messing with us when you stretched his head off? Like, you just pulled it? Like, those are questions you would ask God, right? Well, let's just pretend like, hey, what does God think about me dating? First thing you think of when you come to church and they're talking about dating is like, oh, you don't want me to. You hate it. You hate it. No, you'll never, ever hear me say that. Dating is not bad. Sex is not bad. God created those things. Those desires you have to be with the opposite sex, God gave you those. Do you notice I said the opposite sex there? Those desires that God gave you to be with the opposite sex, God gave you those. He gave them to you. He's not mad that you have them. He's glad. He made you that way. So you come to church expecting us to say, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. No, here's the point. Maybe it's how you do it that matters. Maybe it's when you should do it that matters. Does that make sense? Maybe it's who you do it with that matters. Right? It's all about context. Everyone say context. If you do it in the wrong context, if you do it at the wrong time, if you do it in the wrong ways, and you do it without boundaries, sex and dating will ruin your life. I'm talking forever ruin your life and ruin the lives of others. It's not just about you. That person that so-and-so is having sex with at 14, they're not going to probably be together. And their future spouses have to deal with the consequences of what they're doing now for the rest of their lives. You can do better. You should do better. You deserve better. You have enough wisdom and common sense to figure this out. You just need to step to the tune of the Bible. You need to actually figure out what God wants to say about it. Proverbs 4:23, guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. What is it saying? It's literally saying to build a fortress and a wall around yourself and don't let just anything come near you. Anyone ever heard a circle of friends, that phrase they say? A circle of friends. Raise your hand if you've heard that. My circle of friends. Do you know there's an outer circle of people that you know and you kind of hang out with, and then there's an inner circle? That's what the Bible's talking about here. Guard your heart and be careful who comes into the inner circle, who you spend a lot of time with, who you invest a lot of energy into. Guard that, because if you get that wrong and you let poison in through relationships, if you let boundaries aren't there and things get twisted when it comes to dating, and it's in here, your whole life gets jolted out of control. Guard your heart. Proverbs 4:23. 1 Corinthians 15:33. Don't be a fool. Turn to your neighbor and say, hey, don't be a fool. When have you said that before? Here's another way to say it. Don't be tricked. Don't be fooled. Don't be tricked. Don't miss this. Bad company corrupts good habits. If you're trying to live for Jesus and you are constantly surrounding yourself with people who hate God and they show it by their lifestyle, you will fall off the wayside at some point. You cannot constantly surround yourself with people who don't want nothing to do with Jesus and then pretend like you're on your way to heaven. At some point, they will pull you off of the path that leads to life. At some point, they will pull you down. It's not hard to figure out. We say it to you. You need to actually believe what the Scriptures say. 2 Corinthians 6:14, do not be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. What does that mean? It literally means not to lock arms with and walk intimately with and closely with people who aren't going the same direction as you. If you want to be a dropout drug user and a pregnant at 16, then hang out with people who are doing those things. Who you hang out with matters. If you want to go off to college and have a good career and have a happy marriage with a husband, maybe you need to start hanging out with people who make the right decisions. Don't be unequally yoked. Don't connect to people who are going in a different direction than what you want to go. If you want to go to heaven, you need to surround yourself with some Christians. They need to be in your inner circle, people you confide in, you open up to, that you're vulnerable around. If you don't have Christians in your life that you are vulnerable to, you are hiding who you truly are, and you'll find yourself hiding yourself every part of your life. It won't just be around the Christians. Be vulnerable. Let them in. Be equally yoked with believers. Here's what it goes on to say, 2 Corinthians 6:14. Don't be connected to people who don't love God in an intimate way. For what reason should you be connected to them? They are all about breaking the laws of God. You are not about breaking the laws of God. They're all about hiding in the darkness, all the evil things they're doing, but we are not about hiding the things we do. We want our deeds out in the light so that God can be glorified, right? So if you want God, then you're going to have to break ways. Those are some good scriptures to go by. Who you surround yourself with changes the course of your life. Why do people date? Question. Think about it. Close your eyes. Why are people dating in my school right now? Some people are lonely. They literally just are lonely. It's an unhealthy, unnatural loneliness. They're spending themselves on stuff that makes them empty, and they're lonely. Some people are looking for something. They don't know what it is. They can't put a finger. I was that way. I was like 10 years old, 9 years old, and I knew something was missing. I just knew there was something was missing. And I just started searching. I looked to people, I looked to girls, I looked to find money, I looked to all that stuff. I was missing something. Some people want attention. That's the reason they date. They like the attention. Now, we'll go on, we'll move beyond that. Some people want sex. That's why they date. Ladies, let me just give you a little insight. Most of the guys you're going to meet are not healthy spiritually. They're learning to be healthy spiritually. Most of the guys you meet who aren't going to church, they're really not healthy spiritually. And they definitely fall into this category. You need to learn who you can trust, ladies. Just saying, this is a little caveat, a little side note. You need to learn who you can trust. Just because they're charming, just because they're good looking, just because they say the right things, doesn't mean that they're actually good people to you and treat you right. Truth, I was a teenager. A lot of the men would raise their hands and be like, truth. Seriously, as you get older, you know it. So you need to learn who you can trust. And truth of the matter is, it's not very many people, ladies. A lot of people date because they want sex. Some people date because they want popularity. They just like popularity. And they know if they date this person, boom, their star just went up, right? Don't look at me like I'm stupid. It happens. Are any of those good reasons to date? Not really even one of those was a good reason to date. Not a biblical, healthy reason to date. If they're the wrong reasons, that means people are doing it wrong. Who would think that that list of things describes most of the people in your school? They date for popularity, they date for sex, they date because they feel empty, because they're lonely. That's most of the people that date. And then here we are as Christians who should be set apart doing something different. We're looking to those people who are doing it wrong, and we're like, do you approve of me? Oh, they're doing this, so I should probably do this. We look to them for confirmation about who we should be. We've gotten it way, way wrong. You need to look to the scriptures. You need to look to God. You need to spend time alone with God saying, God, I want you to have control of me, and I know I can't just do that right away. I need to learn to give you control. Anyone control freak in here? There are some things I'm kind of a control freak on. Like, anyone ever met your grandpa and you go out to their like garage and they have all the tools like alphabetically ordered? Anyone ever seen those? As you get older, or some people are just built that way, we get really controlling. And if you pick a tool off their wall and you put it in the wrong spot, or you just set it down, the first thing they do is walk over and put it right back. Right? That should be us. We should be that attentive. We should be watching what's going on. But let's just move on. God gave you the desires that you, when you want to be with someone, when you want to date somebody, that's not a bad thing. God gave you those desires. Let's read in the scriptures where he gave that. Genesis 2:18, the Lord God said, it's not good for a man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him. Ladies, wouldn't you say amen to guys being kind of a bonehead sometimes? So God noticed this, and he says, hey, it's probably not good for a guy to be by himself. He's going to really mess some stuff up. I'm going to bring this girl in here, and then maybe between the two of them, they'll figure this out, right? So God actually created the idea of us finding someone in our lives and being with that person. And I don't read anywhere in these early scriptures of where God created man and woman where he just said, oh, just do whatever feels good. Oh, Adam, yeah, you can go and be with whoever you want. No, like, God designed it, man, woman, for life. It was this thing that God did. So God did that. It was his idea. Don't let the world tell you it's theirs. Don't let the world make you think that what they're doing is the right way. God has got this set up. God knew we needed someone to be with. The problem with our generation isn't dating or sex. The problem is we are doing it wrong. The problem is we misuse God-given desires when we don't guard our heart, we don't pay attention to who we spend our time with. How would you define dating? How would you define it? What is the purpose of dating? This is the problem. We don't actually know what we're doing. It's kind of like, I want you to think about it, not say it. It's kind of like when you misuse a tool. Anyone ever use like a screwdriver for a hammer? I do that all the time because I know there's no way I'm going to find the hammer, so I'll just grab any hard object and I will use that because that'll work. When we don't know what it's used for, we misuse it, and then we break stuff, and we hurt other things. It damages everything involved. And we don't even understand what dating is supposed to be. All we know is that it feels good to be around this person. It feels good to laugh and cut up with this. It's okay. We should enjoy their company. We should enjoy hanging out with the opposite sex. But here's the deal. We misuse it a lot. We don't even understand, well, I'm going to go out with them. What does that even mean? Do you understand what dating is supposed to be? The truth of the matter is there's two types of people in the whole world. There's people who are single and people who are married in God's eyes. That's it. That's it. But we've been together for 15 years. God sees married and he sees single. That's it. That's all. So if you are saying this person is mine, God doesn't see it that way. If you're saying we've been together and I have these feelings, God doesn't see it that way, right? We need to understand how God views dating. And God views only two types. Either you're on your way to finding a partner or you're that whole dating thing. That's the point. Anyone ever been in a car and your parents merge onto a big highway? Think about it. Picture it. You go from a side road and you start speeding up and you merge on where all the big semis are. Has anyone ever, you've seen that? That's what dating's like. It's you going from this side street where you're safe and you're by yourself and you start, I think I'm ready to commit to somebody and I need to find out who that is. So you get on this little road and you start accelerating really fast and then you merge onto this highway called commitment. That's how I could describe dating to you. And unless you're ready to commit for life, you need to guard what you do with the opposite sex. Like I said earlier, if you're alone with the opposite sex, that's something only married people should do. Because people who aren't married and who don't belong to each other, they get pressured and they feel this. Anyone know what I'm talking about? When you date with no boundaries, when you're by yourself with the opposite sex, there's the pressure that builds. That where you were supposed to merge into marriage and then there's no pressure, it's supposed to be that way. When you don't marry and you're around the opposite sex without boundaries, without people, you get all the pressure that the on-ramp gives. Only instead of getting in the marriage lane, you stay over here. and you start doing things in the wrong place, the wrong time, and your whole life can spiral out of control. So it's not about sex. It's not about dating. It's about how you do it. Picture this. Two people who have never been sexually active. They grow up, and at 18, 19, 20, 25, they marry. They stay together for life. They have no risk of any sexual diseases. They have no risk of depression from being sexually active. They have no risk of being if they're in a committed, godly relationship, like I'm not jealous of my wife. She could talk to anybody in the whole church, and I will never be jealous of who she's talking to. Why? Because we trust we're in a committed relationship. Now, let's rewind and go down to your age group. When you walk through the high school or the middle school, you see jealousy, you see anger, you see fighting, you see cheating, you see you see teenage pregnancy, you see all that stuff, and you see depression. Why is it when you do it at your age with no boundaries, it wrecks lives, but when people who are in a committed, mature relationship do it, there's no negative side effects. There's nothing really wrong with it because they're committed. There's boundaries. There's this thing that's happening. Is that clicking for anybody? I want you to think this through, and I want this to be something you pray about. Why is it that sex ruins your life, but adults who are in a committed relationship, it doesn't hurt them? You're doing it at the wrong time. You're doing it in the wrong ways. Sex isn't bad, but if you use it the wrong way, it'll ruin your life. For a long time, students have come to churches and people just say, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. We want you to understand what God thinks about it. We want you to think through what your life should look like in the view of Scripture. We don't want to think for you. We want you to pray and seek God and look at the Bible and say, man, maybe I am doing it the wrong way. Maybe God has a better way of me doing this. Maybe I need to start giving God control. Everyone say that word, control. Control. Dating with no intent to marry is like going to the grocery store with no money. You either leave unhappy or you take something that isn't yours. Think about that. Anyone ever been starved when you go grocery shopping? It's the worst. Don't ever do that because you'll buy everything there. Like you'll be starving and you see like cabbage and you'll be like, I'm starving, this looks awesome. And you get home and it's gross. No one wants cabbage. But you were hungry, so you just get it all and you gobble it up. When you go and you date somebody, but you're not ready to commit to them for life, look here. When you go and you date someone, but you're not mature enough to commit yet, you are ramping up pressure. And you're either going to take something that God didn't intend for you to have, or you're going to walk away very let down because it's just not made for that. I hope it gets you thinking a little bit. All right. Here's Matthew 19:4-6. That at the beginning the Creator made them male and female. For this reason a man will leave his father and mother and be united with his wife, and the two will become one. Two, and then they become one. That's why I say that there's only singles and married. I don't care how long you date. I don't care what you do. God only sees commitment and he sees single. And if you are blurring those, saying, well, I love them, it doesn't change anything. And if you don't follow God's directives, you don't do it his way, you're going to deal with the consequences. You're going to deal with the teenage pregnancy. You're going to deal with the depression. Listen, it's a statistical fact that teenagers who are sexually active have a higher rate of depression and suicidal thoughts. It's a fact. It's not just something a preacher's saying. I'm telling you, you can Google it. I can almost always tell throughout the years when teenagers were sexually active because they acted different than everyone else. Anyone ever seen those people who were maybe younger when they dated and they didn't date real long and they broke up and it was like, not a big deal? Anyone ever seen that? It doesn't happen very often. And then you see these other people and they've been together for extended periods of time alone and they probably were sexually active. And when they break up, the whole world collapses in on itself and everyone around them feels it. Their lives just got wrecked, and they'll deal with that forever. Why? What was the difference? They were using something that God meant to be pure in the wrong way. They were doing something at an early age that God never meant for them to do at that age. And it was obvious to everyone around them because they were jealous, because they were angry, because they were cheating on each other. Listen, if you step back from the school, you step back from culture, and you look at the decay and the chaos that is dating, I shouldn't have to convince you to rethink it. It's kind of just common sense. Wow, they're pretty messed up. Maybe I don't want to be depressed at 13. Maybe you should enjoy just being you. Maybe you should enjoy hanging out with your friends. And if you enjoy hanging out with someone of the opposite sex, do that. But do it in a group where there's no pressure. Do it God's way. Because no one's ready to get married at 13. So why would you start getting on the ramp, speeding up the car, heading off to a committed thing you can't be committed to because you're too young? This is a lot to digest, but I'm going to keep pushing in. I'm almost finished up. Everyone say almost. Here's a couple of statistics for you. Those who are in a committed, God-honoring marriage are only 40% likely to break up over an entire lifetime. 46, sorry. Those who live together and have sex outside of marriage, only 10% of them are still together after 5 years. I'm not going to fly past that because I want you to think about this. Listen, I know you're not wanting to get married. I get all that. But you are doing things that are mature, and I'm trying to explain to you those things you're doing are meant for mature people. And if you're going to do them now, you need to realize how it's going to wreck your life. And this statistic points to that very heavily. Those who are in a committed relationship, especially a God-honoring relationship, they attend church, they serve Jesus, they have a 40% chance of getting a divorce. That's high, 46%. But here's the deal. Those who are not committed, those who are not married, who don't honor God, they only have a 10% chance of staying together after 5 years. That's horrible. Who in here hates divorce? Who in here hates divorce? Statistics say that those who live together before they get married are more likely to get divorced. When you have sex with multiple people and then you go and get married, it literally makes your marriage harder to maintain. It makes you more likely to get a divorce. And if we raise our hands and say, man, I hate divorce, what are you doing to stop divorce in your life 10 years from now? Because those people that are pressuring you to be sexually active now, you who are pressuring others to be sexually active now, it is leading to your future divorce and your future failed marriages. Statistically shows that. It's not Jeremy making stuff up. I get it, you're not wanting to be married, but I want you to think further than 5 days ahead. I want you to think outside of this bubble called your friends and that person that's pursuing you at school. Think for yourself. Think ahead. If they get what they want from you, where does that leave you? Used, alone, talked dirty about all over school? Can you trust anyone at your school? I'm just going lightning round here. I want you to think. Can you trust anyone in your school? Think about that. How many times have you heard of so-and-so getting a picture or a blah, blah, blah of so-and-so and then spreading it everywhere? How many times have you heard that? On the news, you hear it on national news, you hear it all over the place. We are surprised by that. Why? Look here, why are we surprised? What about cheating? How many times just in the last month have you heard someone getting cheated on? Think. I don't want you to say it, think. Why are you surprised? You keep entering into this game called teenage dating and you're surprised by the results, but the results are super, super consistent. Everyone cheats on everyone. No one can be trusted. Everyone's out for themselves. They're not mature enough. They're not mature enough to be committed. It doesn't matter how much you love them or you want to be committed. They're just not capable. Everyone say the word capable. My daughter is about this tall. If I went to my daughter and I said, hey, I love you. Do you love me? She would say, yeah, I love you. I would say, hey, there's a tree over there. Why don't you get this axe and you chop that tree down and you make big old chunks out of that tree and you stack it? She would try because she loves me. She would make the attempt, right? Now imagine me going back to her hours later with her hands blistered. She's crying. She can't do it. She tried. She wanted to for me. And then imagine me getting mad at her because she didn't do it. I thought you loved me. I thought you wanted me to be happy. Who's stupid? I'm stupid. She's not capable of that. I'm ignorant for expecting something so ridiculous. But yet we go to the world and we go to school and we look at these students around us and we're like, Why can't I trust you? Why can't I be committed? Why can't you be committed? Because they're not capable of it. They can't do it. Why are you surprised? They're 14. They're 13. They're 10. You're not built for commitment. So that would probably mean because there's no commitment, maybe sex needs to wait. Remember, sex isn't bad. Remember, dating isn't bad. It's about when you do it. It's about how you do it. It's about who you're with. If you can't figure that out, your life will be a train wreck, almost surely. Because remember, dating is one of the number one things you're dealing with. It's one of the number one things that plagues you, and you might not get right, and it wrecks you. A lot of times we start way too early. Anyone ever seen a tea kettle on the movies where they put it on the oven and it starts whistling and steam shoots out the top? The pressure builds, doesn't it? And that's why the whistle shoots, it makes that weird noise. It goes, whoot. It tells you that it's too much pressure and it's got to release some pressure. A lot of times, the reason we give in to the wrong things in our dating relationships is because we've put ourselves in a situation that we were never meant to be this young. Think about it. How many sexual ads do you see just scrolling through Instagram, scrolling through Facebook, scrolling through whatever? A lot. I'm talking BMW ads, like car ads. I'm talking shoe ads. All the above. What do they have in them? Half-naked chicks. Guys with their shirt off. People making out. People. It's pushed. But here's the deal. At a younger and younger age. At 8 years old, they're saying between 8 and 10 years old, students are seeing pornography for the first time. Think about that. Follow me. I know there's movement. For the first time in someone's life, they're seeing pornography at 8 and 10 years old. They started the pressure early. They weren't even supposed to see that until they were like 20. God never intended that. So this pressure and this twisted version of a relationship starts right there at 8 and 9 years old. The wrong view of sex happens at 8 and 9 years old. And then maybe some of us, we get in a relationship with no boundaries and we're alone with the person we're dating and there's this pressure builds and builds. It's only so long until something bad happens because you've put yourself in a situation you weren't meant to. We start the pressure. It's not that the pressure's bad. When you date later in life and you start being alone with that person closer to when you're getting married, that pressure is awesome. That's what it was designed for. You should be attracted to them. But you shouldn't be alone with the person you're attracted with at 8 years old in a room by yourself. You've pressured yourself too early. You've sexualized yourself too early. You've allowed yourself in the wrong place at the wrong time too early. God wanted that later when you're mature and you can commit to the person and they can commit to you. And then that sex thing becomes awesome. It bonds you. It connects you to that person and it makes you one. I hope you're getting something out of this. Song of Solomon, one of the best scriptures about dating. 8:4, promise me, do not awaken love until the time is right. What is it saying there? Do not awaken love. Do not stir up those feelings until you're ready for them. Don't start this pressured thing called relationships and commitment and sex. Don't start it until you're ready. If you started at 10, it's no wonder you feel like you should be with that person every waking moment and having sex at 14 and 15. You started way too early. You weren't meant to start at 10. You were supposed to start at 17 and 18. And when you become an official adult, you could have been ready to commit and marry, and the whole sex thing becomes awesome. But you started too early. You stirred up the desires that God gave you at the wrong time. Does that make sense? And then you might have stirred up those desires with the wrong person. And then you stirred up those desires with no boundaries. You're alone with this person. And now this pressure is building. And bad decisions happen. Bad decisions that ruin your life. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. We're running out of time here. The true question of the hour is, what will you do? Will you entertain, pray about, think about, determine to figure out whether God can have control of your life? Because ultimately that's what we're talking about here tonight. Either God is in control or you're learning to give him control, or you're in control. That's it. If you're in control, you're going to make horrible decisions. You're going to mess up a lot of stuff, and you're going to hurt other people. But if you will start learning to give Jesus control of your life, and yes, even the whole dating thing, let him write your love story, let him tell you what that should look like, then you don't have to destroy other people's lives. You don't have to get married and hope you're not getting a divorce because you've literally had sex with 5 to 10, 15 people before that person. You can do things a different way than all the stuff you see at school, all the stuff you see on Snapchat. You don't have to do what they're doing. You don't have to listen, if you're going to do what they're doing, you're going to reap the benefits they're reaping. They're the ones that are 16 and pregnant. They're the ones that didn't get to go to college. They're the ones that don't have a job. They're the ones that don't have a husband taking care of the kid with them. They're the ones that are hooked on drugs. They're the ones that are just, when you do what they do, you get their benefits. But if you'll do what God wants you to do, you'll have a happy marriage. Listen, even right now, you'll enjoy your life more if you do it God's way. There are literally 8-year-olds and 7-year-olds on the playground at our local school, and they don't know how to play. They don't know how to have an imagination anymore. We have matured them so fast, so quickly, they literally just sit on the bench during play recess. What's wrong with us? You tried to grow up too fast. You should be hanging out with your friends. You should be going in groups and hanging out with the opposite sex. It keeps the pressure off. It keeps you. You can enjoy everyone around you without all the garbage, without all the pressure, without all the stuff. If you'll do things God's way, you'll get the better results, and you'll be you at the end. There's an analogy as I finish things up. We always show it. It's a rose, a very beautiful rose. And I want you to imagine the petals being pulled off one by one. That's that person you dated for 6 months, and you literally invested every ounce of energy into them, and they broke up with you. There goes a petal. You have a beautiful, pristine rose, and boom, this person dated you. This person used you, told you what you needed to hear, and got something from you, pulled a petal. By the time you're even 20, most teenagers, by the time they get college, they've literally had sex with 10 people. By the time they're in college, they've pulled every rose petal off of their rose. And what God meant to be beautiful has been ruined. You're at an age you don't have to continue down that path. What God meant for beauty can stay beautiful. And if there's someone in this room and you've made the wrong decisions, I'm a testimony you can start over. God allowed me to start over. I pulled all the wrong petals off. And God restored my purity. And he brought me with my wife. And it was a beautiful thing. God offers you a fresh start. But I had to come to a place in prayer, and I said, God, I want you to have control. I'm tired of looking at girls like my friends look at girls. I'm tired of living my life the way I've been living my life. I want you to have control. Hello, this is Jeremy Jones with Harvest Christian Center. We're coming to you about Wake Next Gen Ministry. It's a brand new ministry here at Harvest. It's for 11th and 12th grade of high school and also college age, 18 to 25 years old. We have a lot going on. We meet on a regular basis, and we feel like that we need to get the word out and help people know what God is doing in the new ministry that started. The best part about this is we have some of the best leaders in the area coming together to help lead the ministry. It's not just one person working at a church. We have a team of people who are talented in leadership, people who are talented in preaching and praying in the altars. And we offer small groups, we offer services. We just want you to know that God is doing something, and I think it's time that you get involved. There's some of you that used to be in church, some of you that used to be involved in a church, and maybe now's the time to come back to church and see what God can do in your life. We meet on Sundays at 5 p.m. We also meet on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. We offer worship with a live band. We also offer small groups and Bible studies. Now is the time to check us out if you are in the age group that we're talking about. I would also encourage you to go online. Visit us on Instagram. Visit us on Facebook. Go to our website. You can listen to messages. You can listen to teachings. Get help reading your Bible. You can even download the app for the church. Type in Reap Now in your app store and our app will pop up, and there's over 100 different resources from this ministry that are available to you to help you grow in God. I want you to know what we're doing, and I want you to get involved.